What's up, everyone? Welcome to the very first episode of Variant Live for 2018. How crazy is that? We are already in 2018. It feels like 2017 just flew by. It's pretty crazy to me. I talk about it like every day, but I think like the older you get, the faster time goes for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's because like you're working all the time, you're always busy. I don't know. But welcome to 2018, everyone. Welcome. Here we are. As you guys know, last month, I believe, I told you guys that we were going to be on the very first episode of Variant Live. We're going to be talking about the plans for Variant in 2018 and all the fun stuff and cool things we were going to do in the year. But we're kind of still working on it. We have some big plans ahead, and we don't want to like just tell you guys this without it being extremely laid out and set. So we're gonna hold off on that for today. Probably within the month, we'll definitely do an episode about telling you guys the plans for 2018 going forward, all the exciting events and maybe possible ideas and things that are going to grow and evolve for Variant this year. But that's going to be sometime in January. We'll talk about that whenever we get it solidified. It'll be good and ready to go. But as for today, as you guys know, over the break, the last episode of Variant Live, which I believe was 2-3 weeks ago now, I asked you guys, I told you guys, hey, let's finish the first season of My Hero Academia, because ever since Variant Live started, we pretty much have been watching the first 2 episodes, or 2 episodes every week of My Hero Academia. And over the break, I don't know about you guys, but I had 2 lovely weeks off. I know a lot of you guys took time off of work like I did, or school. You were just on break because of school. So with that time, I watched some anime. And let me tell you guys, the first season of My Hero Academia is amazing. Like I said, every time I've heard like a lot of you guys tell me, my friends, how good it was, and it was fantastic. All Might is one of my favorite characters now in general. I like him so much, him and Deku, so much that I got their pops. I did. I went on Amazon over the break, got their pops, $8 each. If you guys like the show and you want a little figurine of them, do it. 16 bucks for the 2 of them. Anyway, All Might is just so cool. I love how he's pretty much just like the Superman of that universe, but even kind of like more so in the sense where like justice will always prevail, and even just like his comedic aspect to the show and his relationship with Deku is really, really awesome. How he's kind of like bringing him up and stuff like that. And then I believe it was the second to last episode. Again, there's going to be a little spoilers for the first season of My Hero Academia. If you guys didn't catch on already, I'm going to spoil some parts for the first season. So if you want to watch it and you don't want it spoiled, you've been warned. If you have watched it, then join me in my glee of talking about the first season. The second to last episode of the first season, though, is when All Might actually fought Nomu. Yes, Nomu, which was basically a villain who was created to like be just as strong as All Might and fight him. But that whole episode, it was basically like towards the last half of it, it was just became a 10-minute action sequence with All Might's dialogue of saying like go beyond, always like find a way to win, justice will always prevail. And it was just, I'm gonna say it was inspiring. Like, it's an anime, it's a cartoon, but I was like, no, this is like how people should be in real life. Like, never give up, always find a way. Like, good will always win. I'm just a sucker for that. I love that kind of stuff, which is why I'm a big Superman fan and stuff. But that mixed with the great animation of the anime and just the dialogue and just the overall tone and the music. Oh my gosh, the music for the show, I think, is kind of what pushes it to the next level as far as like it drives the emotion, the action sequences, and it's always different. It goes from like metal riffs to like like big swells of like happy music to sad music. It's just really like unique. I mean, I know anime kind of does that a lot, but I don't know, I personally like this more than most, although One Punch Man's music is fantastic as well. But I was actually thoroughly surprised of how much I enjoyed like the music, because it drives the story a lot, and the characters are all great. Tenya's cool. Tenya is really funny to me because like he's the class president of their class and whatnot, but he's like a speedster. Obviously, he's not a speedster. He's a guy who runs fast. But the way they explain him running fast is his quirk is he literally has motors in his calves, which sounds ridiculous and stupid and sound like it shouldn't work at all, but it works because it's anime and just within that universe where there's this guy who has the perverted kid has his power is he has balls on his head that he could rip off, throw at people, and they stick. Like it just makes no dang sense, but it is hilarious. But again, yeah, he's not connected to the Speed Force. He's not a mutant or anything like that. He's got motors in his calf. That's what his quirk is. That's how he runs fast. And there's literally like mufflers coming out. It's just really good. But all the character interaction with him is really cool. And I believe, what's his name, Bodigo? I forget his name. There's just so many names and characters in the show. It's basically Midoriya's like best friend growing up, but like he's really mean to him. You know, the guy with the grenade fists. I'm sure someone's saying it in the comments. They're like, it's this guy. His name's escaping me right now, but I love how pissed off he gets all the time. It's just really hilarious, and it makes for those stereotypical anime moments where, you know, like he freeze frames and then like the colors in the back flash really fast. Anyway, long story short, the first season is great. If you guys want to hear or watch a show that's very hero driven, something kind of original too. I mean, there's been stuff like it, but not like this, or at least that I've enjoyed as much as this. It's a pretty, you know, for the most part, original concept. I definitely recommend you check out My Hero Academia. It's one of my favorite cartoons now. I wouldn't say it's, you know, like top cartoons of all time, but currently I'm enjoying it a lot. It's definitely one of my favorite animes. Again, I don't watch that many animes. That's why I started doing this with you guys, because I want to start watching more. I only watch a handful of them, but this is definitely up there. It's definitely up there. I love it a lot. Every night I watch, well, as of the break, like I've just dived into season 2. So I'm halfway through season 2. Hopefully I'll finish it soon, but I kind of like want to lay off just so I have more of it. Don't have to wait for season 3. Anyway, you guys should watch it. Very good anime. Highly recommend it. But that's not the only thing. There's lots of things that came out during the holiday break. One of the things was released on Netflix called The Toys That Made Us. Now, as you guys know, besides comic books, I love toys, action figures, collectibles, all that fun stuff. They go hand in hand for me. And this is a 4-part documentary series on Netflix they're an hour each, and each episode is dedicated to a certain toy line. The first episode, I believe, is Star Wars. The second one is Barbie. The third one, I believe, is He-Man. And the last one is G.I. Joe, or the third one's G.I. Joe and the last one's He-Man. You guys get the point. It's G.I. Joe, He-Man, Barbie, and Star Wars. And it basically tells you how these toys came to be. Like for Star Wars, they get all the original creators of the toys, and like how when they were shooting the first Star Wars movie, how one of the guys from Kenner met with George Lucas, and he saw the actual like miniatures of the Millennium Falcon. He's like, what? So it's really, really interesting. Like, you don't really even have to like toys. If you just like Star Wars or nerdy things, I highly recommend it. It's just super interesting. But if you do like toys like me, you'll get that more invested in it. And in the theme song, I will say, it says an 8-part documentary series, but it's only 4 episodes. So one would assume we're gonna get 4 more episodes later on, like as the second half of the first season, or as, you know, it could be a season 2, because there's lots more toys from like the 80s and stuff to talk about, because they only touched on 4. I mean, you can get into like Thundercats, you can get into like Hot Wheels, even some of the superpower stuff for you know, DC and all that stuff. There's just a plethora. Lego. There's a plethora of toy lines and stuff you can get into with this series, and the possibilities are almost endless. So I hope they get into like some of my favorite toy lines, or even go into like the 90s, because this one was mainly like 70s, 80s. You know, where action figures were at its like peak, because now it's, you know, everything's like digital, video games. Action figures are still a thing, but it's not nearly, you know, as popular for kids as it was like in the 80s and 70s. But again, if you guys are looking for something to watch on Netflix, I highly recommend that you check it out, because it is awesome. Especially if you're like a toy nerd like me and just want to like look at, you know, see how these Star Wars toys and some of your favorite toys growing up are made. It's super interesting. And there's actually controversial too at times, especially with Barbie. Like, obviously, like, I didn't have Barbies growing up, but like, it's just interesting to see like how, you know, they made Barbie. And apparently there was a lot of drama behind the scenes. I'm not going to give it all away, but let's just say the people who worked for the Barbie line had spies and moles for other toy companies to try to beat them to the punch. And there's a lot of drama. Who would have known there's drama with Barbie? But it's a really good series. I highly recommend you guys check that out. Moving along, speaking of another good series, I watch a lot of TV over the break, more so than movies. I feel like I watch more TV now and like Netflix stuff than movies. Like, because even on Netflix, I watch more of their original series and just shows that are on Netflix than I do their movies. Anyway, this isn't on Netflix though, but it is another TV show. You guys probably heard of it. It came out, I think it was released in November. Robert Kirkman's Secret History of Comics, which is awesome. It's a 6-part documentary series. I don't know if it's getting a season 2 or not, but the first 6 episodes are out. So if you have cable or the AMC app, you could watch it. Essentially, it's exactly what it is. They give you the secret history of comic books. So they do Superman, they talk about Wonder Woman, they do Milestone comics, which is really interesting. That was really cool. That was one of my favorite ones. And so Image was also one of my favorite ones as well. But I mean, it is like, it's kind of like the history of episodes. They give you the history though of like how Superman came to be, what the legal rights were with Joe Shuster and Siegel, and how that whole thing played out with DC, how they weren't getting any money even though they created Superman, and the battle they had with DC. Wonder Woman, how the creator of Wonder Woman actually had a wife but then ended up having a mistress, and it gets into all this stuff, and it's just really well done with all of it. And they get like pretty much anyone who's alive who had to do with the character they're talking about at some point in the interview. So it's really, really interesting. Like for Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman episode, the creator isn't alive anymore, but I believe they had his estranged daughter. Say estranged because there's a lot of drama behind it. It was weird. Watch it on demand and whatnot. But if you like comic books, which obviously you do because you're watching me right now, and that's what I do. I talk about comic books. You definitely need to check it out on demand, AMC, or however you need to watch it. But watch it. It's 6 parts. Awesome. You're gonna love it. More TV news, because apparently that's what's hot right now, is today actually just announced. I don't know how many of you are 90s kids like me and remember Animaniacs. Remember Steven Spielberg's Animaniacs on Kids WB? Anyway, they just announced today that Hulu will be giving us 2 brand new seasons of Animaniacs in 2020. How crazy is that? Like, it's so weird that, like, it's essentially that all the people in the 90s that were like, 10, 7 years old, like me and some of you, are now adults in their 30s, early 30s, controlling all this stuff. So you're like, what we're going to do? We're just going to bring back one of my favorite cartoons and we're going to put it on a streaming service because that's the modern era. But it's even going to be produced by Steven Spielberg once again. So we're going to have the Pinky and the Brain was part of that. Obviously, they got their own spinoff because they were such a big part of that show. The Animaniacs, I'm super excited. That was one of my favorite things. I just remember coming home from school every day. I didn't do my homework right away. I wasn't one of those kids. I'd like put it off as much as I could. Wasn't the best student in the world, not gonna lie. But I would come home, watch Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, Beetleborgs, Power Rangers, of course, Batman the Animated Series, Spiderman the Animated Series, X-Men, and that was like the highlight of my week. I was like, school and math, that's fine, but Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, Batman the Animated Series, that was my jam. So for any of you who loved it again like I did as a kid, it's coming back in 2020. Although it's kind of funny that you would announce it like years before. It's like, that's awesome and all, and I'm really excited, but being honest, I'm going to forget in like a week or two because it's 2020, and then by the time it's close to its release, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right, and I'll get rejacked for Animaniacs. So maybe it's like a twofer, where it's like they're doing it on purpose, so that way you get excited twice for it. But yeah, Animaniacs is coming back, so that's kind of awesome. Going back into some actual comics, though, some comic book news. Metal 4 came out about a week or two ago. It came out in the last week or two. It was been delayed for about a month and a half, so we had some gappage in there, but that's fine. But it was a really solid issue. As you guys know, if you again, I might say spoilers. So if you haven't read Metal 4, I'm possibly going to mention spoilers in my little convo right here. But they unveiled a little more about Barbados, or Barbados, however you want to say it. I know people are like arguing about that on the internet. It's like, no, it's Barbados. No, it's Barbados. To each his own, I say. However you want to say it. Anyway, they revealed more about his origin, how basically he was like, again, spoilers. He was like a dragon of the underworld, and then he kind of, rejected on, underworld, I mean like the dark universe by that, using these terms loosely. Don't take what I say too literal here. He was like a dragon of like the dark multiverse or the underworld, and he turned on his master, and then, he kind of started ruling it himself, and that's why all these nightmare versions started happening, and then he got his own dragon, so to speak, and we find out that's Hawkman. I haven't read Hawkman Found yet, which was released, I think, simultaneously or right after, which I guess is going to explain more of that. I haven't read that yet, though, so I'm assuming that gets more into that. But that's a pretty big reveal in itself that, Hawkman is his dragon, because this whole series has been talking about Hawkman and like, you know, his metal, because DC metal and all that stuff. So that was a pretty decent reveal. Solid issue thus far. Really digging metal. Oddly enough, too, I'm liking the tie-ins just as much as the main series, and that like normally never happens. Like the tie-ins are just usually like money grabs to get more money from you, but it's really solid. Like the origins of all the Dark Knights, those were some of my favorite. I like that just as much, if not more, than the actual series, the metal series itself, which is crazy. Anyway, we see a lot of the Sandman, going back to 104. In 104, we see a lot of the Sandman, and he explains stuff to Bruce and Clark, because Bruce and Clark finally get back together. Not back together, not together, you know what I mean. They finally team up once again, and we see a lot more of Sandman, which is pretty crazy to see, you know, him interact with Superman and Batman and all that stuff. This series is just going like all out and branching to like every part of the DC universe. It's just a very ambitious move by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, and they're pulling it off thus far. We even see Starro the Conqueror in this issue, which, as you guys know, the first villain for the Justice League. That was pretty crazy. I'm loving the Easter eggs like a lot, or even more so than some of the main stories sometimes, just because I love like when you could take all these elements from, you know, this big universe and throw them in there and make it work. And I love just nods to, like, for us who've been reading comics for years. I think it's really, you know, the fan service is just great, I think. But yeah, overall, Metal 4, very solid issue. Can't wait. I believe it's a 6-part series, so I think we got 2 more issues left. So I'm very curious to see, you know, they got, if I'm correct, again, I believe it's a 6-part series. They got 2 issues to wrap this up, so I am very, very curious to see where they go from here. But another huge event, probably the biggest event besides Metal, it's probably just, so you got like DC, you got like Metal right here, Dark Knight's Metal, and then you got like Doomsday Clock, because it's freaking the sequel to Watchmen, and we got issue 2, I believe, last week. Boy, oh boy, guys. Again, spoilers. Sorry, if you haven't read Doomsday Clock issue 2, I'm going to be talking about some spoilers. But man, was that a super solid issue. I love what they're doing. In the issue, we finally see how the Watchmen universe and the DC universe collide. So basically, in a nutshell, really rough, quick summary of it, is Rorschach and Ozymandias and Mime and all that stuff basically time travel or time jump or shift to another reality to the DC universe. Yes, I know. They travel to the DC universe, and they're now in the main DC universe where Ozymandias is going there to meet Lex Luthor. And then, at the very end of the issue, Rorschach goes into freaking Wayne Manor and finds the Batcave, walks his butt down to the Batcave, looking around, and he's saying stuff like, you know, what are all these trophies? What kind of sadistic, you know, madman would keep, like, you know, costumes of all the bad guys and people he fought? Enter, as he's saying this kind of stuff to himself, Batman comes face to face with him, and the comic basically ends with Batman and Rorschach facing off next to one another, and you're like, what's gonna happen here? Like, that alone is like, the comic was really well done, like, throughout the whole thing. It's very true to how Watchmen was written and drawn with the panel layout. I've said it before. It's a direct sequel. They're not trying to go away from any of that. So that's, Jeff Johns is doing it perfect. But just now that, like, this issue is like, okay, first issue was a little bit of setup. This is what's kind of going on over the past few years, what's going on in the Watchmen universe. But now that they're in the DC universe now, and we're finally going to get to see these characters interact with Superman, Batman, you know, Wonder Woman, you know, just the DC universe, Lex Luthor, it is crazy. And another huge reveal, before they actually, the last page where you see Batman and Rorschach staring at each other in the Batcave, and Batman being, you know, not too happy that this guy in a mask and an orange or a brown coat is in the Batcave, we see that the comedian is apparently still alive. Apparently. He walks in on Lex Luthor and Ozymandias, and that's another cliffhanger, because it's like, what? Okay. So that is pretty crazy. That's another reveal in itself. This series is pretty much it's crazy though too, because a lot of the Rorschach and Ozymandias obviously we've all know those characters, but we only know them really from the Watchmen and then the movie. So it's crazy how you're invested in these characters so much, where they're not like a Spiderman, a Batman, a Superman, where you've read them for years and years. There are multiple cartoons or multiple movies that you care about these characters that have really only been in one book. I mean, you could count before Watchmen, but come on now, that wasn't the best. So I love when you can just, the story is just so good that you really don't care whether you know the characters or not. It's just good because the writing's good. I mean, again, we've loved these characters. Watchmen is one of the greatest graphic novels of all time, but I just figured I'd throw that in there to be like, it's crazy that, you know, even though they've been in one book and we like them because of that one book, how much you care about them just because Jeff Johns' story and Gary Frank's art is so fan-freaking-tastic. So that's all I have for today as far as news, but I'm going to do some questions real quick in the live chat and talk to you guys because, quite frankly, I missed you guys. It's been a while. It's been a bit. So I'm going to answer a few questions and I'm going to get out of here and let you guys go on to your day. So let's see. Let's look for some questions. William says, did you watch The Punisher yet? Actually, no. That's one of the things I didn't watch yet, and I've actually heard it's pretty good. So that's on my queue, on my list. But there's just so many things to watch because I don't only watch superhero stuff, obviously. So I have like Peaky Blinders on my list. I want to watch that. I want to watch Dark that's on Netflix. There's a bunch of movies I want to watch. So it's hard to balance it out. So much stuff to watch these days where it's like overload of like content. It's like bittersweet where it's like, you know, when you go to an ice cream store and you're like, oh my God, they got like 31 flavors. But you almost rather they only have 4 flavors because now you don't know what you're going to pick because there's just so many options. It's like that in like movie TV form. Let's see. Darius Harris. Very similar to my name. Are you looking forward to season 3 of Daredevil? Of course. Of course I am. Can't wait for that. It's actually probably my favorite out of all the Netflix Marvel stuff that's happening. Although I haven't seen Punisher yet, so that could beat it out. I don't know yet. Gomez Comic Collector says, what you want to read hot, but it lost me. What am I reading? I guess you're asking besides Doomsday Clock. I'm reading a lot of stuff. One of my favorite titles right now, besides like the big events like DC Metal and Doomsday Clock, is Batman the White Knight. You guys know I'm a Batman fan. And oh my God, it's like I've said it before on Variant Live actually. The Batman the White Knight is fantastic. Issue 3 or 4. Issue 3 I believe came out yesterday. I haven't read it yet. But man, that series thus far, it's an Elseworld Batman story. If you want a good comic to read, whether you're a Batman fan or not, it's just a good story. Batman the White Knight. Read it. You won't regret it. Let's see what else we got here. The comic book guy says, are you reading Super Sons of Tomorrow? I've read several issues. I am not current, but it's a very fun series. It's so fun. I guess DC Collectibles was like, yeah, this is doing really well. We're going to give it a 2-pack action figure set. So no, it's really, what I've read from it, again, I'm not current. I believe I'm several issues behind actually, but I am digging it if that's what you are asking. Maddie asks, how is being a father? Oh, thank you for asking that. It's great actually. My daughter is Olivia Quinones. She just turned 7 months yesterday, and she is freaking adorable. She actually has a fever today because she's teething and stuff. So that's a little sad. It's a little hard when your baby's like kind of crying and there's nothing you could do. So that's a little heartbreaking. But after this, I'm gonna scurry home and hold my baby. But thank you for asking. Thank you very much. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to answer 3 more. I'm going to answer 3 more questions, and then I'm going to get out of here, guys. Whoa, that was just a super flux of comments. I feel like everyone pressed enter at like the same exact time. All right, let's see. Deshaun's Roots asks, did you hear about Rick and Morty? I did not. Hopefully that's not a bad thing. Obviously you guys know I'm a fan of the show. But that tone, I know it's not really a tone per se, but the way you wrote it sounds like that's a bad thing. And I don't want bad news. So, but now I'm going to have to find out what that means. Does that mean, is it canceled? Are we not getting a season 4? Now I'm curious, man. Now you got me all nervous. Almighty asks, how was your Christmas and New Year's? My Christmas and New Year, again, thank you for asking. I am that's very kind of you. My Christmas was great. I got some pretty awesome stuff. My wife actually got me, one of the coolest gifts she got me was a remote control car that is RC car, because who doesn't like RC cars? I'm a big kid. I'm a grown adult, has a baby. I can play with an RC car. Anyway, it's an RC car that actually shoots darts out of it, and it's awesome. So now around the office and studio, between working on the show, I drive around the office and shoot everyone who's works here, and that's fun, and they love me for it. No, but that was one of my coolest gifts. And then since I'm old now, I'm married and whatnot, I got like practical gifts. I got like a new carry-on and stuff like that. Got some comic book stuff, all kinds of goodies. New Year's was fun. Spent it with family and whatnot. It was actually kind of funny because going back to my kid, last year on New Year's Eve, I found out the gender of my baby. So it was really weird. It was like the 1 year anniversary of like finding out if my kid was a boy or a girl. So that was kind of weird, but it was fun. All right, one more question, and then I'm gonna get out of here, guys. Gaming says, "I love your beard." Thank you. That wasn't a question though, but I had to read it because I thought that was funny. All right. Let's see. It's moving fast in here, so I'm trying to pick one when it stays steady. Richard asks, "What do you think of the new Spider-Man game?" Well, I don't know if you guys know me. Like, I love comic books, I love nerdy stuff, but there's one thing that I don't really do often, and that is play video games. Not saying I don't like video games, I just unfortunately don't have the time to keep up with like another thing. So the only real video games I play is like the Arkham games. I love Mortal Kombat and this, superhero games. So Spider-Man. But I will say, with that said, I don't even know if the game's out yet. I believe it's not out. I know it's only for PS4, and I unfortunately only have an Xbox One. But I will go off on that and just say I really do want to play it, and I'm sure I will borrow a PS4 from a friend or a family member and play that game, because it's essentially, it looks like it's going to be the Arkham games, but for Spider-Man. So there's no way I'm not going to play that game and talk about it on Variant, because that game looks freaking nuts. So if you're asking what I think about it on that front, I'm excited, and I'm definitely going to play that game. So I really, really, really want to see it. Let's see. My producer's showing me something on Rick and Morty. No one working Rick and Morty season 4 script. What? Okay, so Rick and Morty's delayed until 2019 because no one's working on it. I knew it was bad news. See? I forget who mentioned it earlier, but your tone and demeanor, I saw it even though it was through text, that was something bad. That sucks, because I even heard rumors that this season 3, like, apparently wasn't even supposed to be done. I don't know. Again, I've heard this from like friends and stuff, but that's unfortunate, because this show is like one of the biggest shows, in like the nerd community, whatever, cartoons out currently. That's unfortunate, but I will say I haven't finished season 3 yet, so I think I've watched like the first 5 episodes, so I got like another 5 episodes left, but that's unfortunate. I'm gonna have to look into that more after I get off of this, and maybe talk about that more in depth next time on next week's Variant Live. But with that said, I'm gonna get out of here, guys. I hope you guys had a very happy New Year. I hope you had a great Christmas, and I will see you next week or next time when I talk about all things comics.